Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our School Choice podcast here from the Commonwealth Foundation. Today, our guest is a returning guest, but it's an appropriate time to have him with us. It's Andrew Campanella. Andrew is the president of National School Choice Week, and he is a leading voice in the National School Choice movement. Andrew has served as president of National School Choice Week since 2012, and there he's played a pivotal role in advocating for educational freedom and empowering families with more choices in K-12 education. Andrew also serves as the chairman and CEO of the National School Choice Awareness Foundation. Andrew is an award-winning author and a very much sought-after commentator. Andrew's insights on education policy and school choice have appeared in a variety of national media outlets. You can find him at Fox Business, Real Clear Politics, and even the Daily Caller. With National School Choice Week just around the corner in January 2025, we're thrilled to have Andrew back with us on the show to discuss the latest developments in the school choice movement and this year's upcoming National School Choice Week. Andrew, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Guy. I appreciate it.
Well, as we get ready for School Choice Week, National School Choice Week in January, if you could give us a little bit of the background, right? You brought this about to inspire others to support school choice, to inform the public, and to celebrate the families that have already had school choice, and to make sure that more families have K-12 options for school choice. As the 2025 event comes up, if you would let us know when is National School Choice Week and tell us what your organization has planned this year.
Sure. So National School Choice Week, as you said, started in 2011 by the Gleason Family Foundation, which is a private foundation in California, and they work nationally on school choice issues. And they came up with this idea of having 1 week out of the year where people who support school choice can raise awareness about all types of education options. So whether you support and or have chosen a traditional public school, public charter school, public magnet school, private school, online school, homeschooling, or now microschooling, School Choice Week is a time to talk about those different options and let other parents know that they exist, because so many parents each year are searching for new schools for their kids. And so over the past 15 years, and this will be our 15th year in 2025, we've worked with schools and nonprofits all across the country to host 300,000 events. And the goal of those events is to bring awareness in local communities that there are options for families and provide a platform for parents who feel that they don't have choices to have their voices heard. So we're coming up on School Choice Week, January 26th through February 1st, and there are so many different ways that folks in Pennsylvania and across the country can get involved.
One of the things that I think for our listeners that's interesting is you make a point of pointing out the variety of school choice options. And you've mentioned in the past when you've joined us that some of the biggest supporters in National School Choice Week are families or people that are involved in public schools. Could you share a little bit more about us why that might seem unusual to those of us in the school choice movement, the role of public school and public school choice?
Yeah, so when I talk about all the options, we really do mean it. And we have thousands of traditional public schools that actually participate in School Choice Week each year because in their communities, they view themselves as a school of choice. They want parents to view them as an option and actively choose them. And we're seeing more of this in states where there are robust school choice programs, whether in the public sector, the private sector, or both. So for example, in Florida, which has some of the most robust school choice programs across the spectrum, public schools want to participate because it's a marketing tool for them so they can get in front of families and let them know this is what they offer for families and kids. And so we want people to know that school choice is not about one type of school or another. It's about what is best for your individual child. And families increasingly are becoming what I call multiple choice, meaning they're sending one student in their household to a public school, another to a private school, maybe homeschooling another one. And in some cases, they're mixing and matching and doing online learning for one class, sending the child to a public school for extracurriculars, doing private education for a different course. And that is the future, I think, of education. It is families making decisions on a kid-by-kid basis and then making it work.
As you described that, for those of us in Pennsylvania, that seems like almost another planet, but it gives us something to aspire to. And it's why organizations like Commonwealth Foundation have guests like you to let us know, to sort of raise our horizon of what we should be fighting for and can do here in Pennsylvania. If you would just step back, you touched on it briefly in the earlier question, but just a little more, why you were drawn to come to work for National School Choice Week. You've explained why it was founded, but what brought you to it?
Oh, that's a great question. So I was fortunate. I grew up in southern New Jersey, so I'm very familiar with Pennsylvania, especially the Philadelphia area. And I went to a really good traditional public school. It worked well for me. I thought I had got a great education there. I had no complaints. Well, I did have complaints, but the complaints were about the school taxes and things like that. And I spoke at meetings and got in trouble as a kid for standing up to school boards. Anyway, that's a whole different topic. But went to college. And after college, I was volunteering with a civics education group in Washington, D.C., which is where I went to college. And I noticed that so many of the kids there were talking about how they didn't feel safe in school, how they never had a teacher who stayed the full school year. And these are kids in high school reflecting back on their elementary and middle school experiences. And what came over me was this awareness of, wow, I got lucky. Not only did we have a public school in my community that was, by all standards and measures, a good school, but it was also a good school for me. And other kids, too many other kids, did not have that benefit. And so there really is not equality of opportunity, and it really is based on zip code. And so if you live in a bad zip code, meaning a zip code where the schools aren't effective, then you might have a worse outcome than me. And that's not fair. So I was drawn to education because of that moment and that realization. And I started to work in different nonprofits, one that recruited teachers from different careers to switch and become teachers in public schools. Another working to advocate for school choice legislation. And then when this organization, National School Choice Week, this effort came about, I joined it because I thought, the biggest thing we need to do is let more people know about school choice. Let more people know that these options are out there and how they are needed and how they can change kids' lives. And advertising and marketing and media relations and awareness are often viewed as soft skills, but in reality, they're really important. And every company invests in that just as they do in R&D, and so should our movement. So as a long answer to your short question, this is something I care a lot about.
I couldn't pick that up. So I'm glad you explained it. I'm just kidding. No, I mean, your passion,
You never know.
Your passion is your passion is obvious, and the enthusiasm behind your answers is very admirable and lifts your spirits. So if you would, you've seen a lot during your tenure. What are some of the successful School Choice Week events that have taken place? I mean, I'm sure you've seen lots of rallies and parties and what have you, but what are some of the, maybe one or two of the events that you've participated in or you've learned about, that you've inspired, that you'd like to share with our audience?
Sure. So there are so many that I could give you a long, long list. I'm just going to give you two quick stories. And the first is a story a while back. I was walking into an event in St. Louis, Missouri with there were thousands of people there. Maybe hundreds. Maybe I'm overcounting audiences like many in the political world. Anyway, there were hundreds of people there. I was walking in and there was a mother and a son, and they were walking in right next to me. And I asked, why are you there? And the little kid looked at me and he said, the reason I'm here is because I get to celebrate the fact that I finally am going to a school where I feel like there's nothing wrong with me and I have friends. And I feel like I'm able to learn. And I didn't really even ask what type of school he went to. I didn't ask why he felt this way. All I knew is that this kid felt like he didn't belong in the other school. He was unable to make friends and he wasn't learning. And that's a 3-part combination for unhappiness. And now he's in a school where he does feel like he fits in. He is making friends and he is learning. And that's always stuck with me. The second example I have is actually an event I didn't go to. It's an event somebody told me about a year ago that happened 3 years ago. And it was an event in North Carolina where a school for students with special needs held an event for School Choice Week. They invited their local state rep The state rep really didn't know much at all about this school, went to the school for the event, and then the next year put an appropriation in the budget to help it expand and serve more kids who have special needs. And so when you think of an event, you might think, well, people do events all the time. But sometimes when you do an event and you can invite new people in and you can raise awareness, there is a meaningful output. And that example in North Carolina is something that just, wow, I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, one of the things that we work on is encouraging schools to open their doors, to not assume that legislators know what's going on. I often joke that, there's not a magic metamorphosis that happens on election night when you're elected for the first time to be a state representative or a state senator. You don't suddenly become an expert in farming, education, special education, transportation, highways, engineers, climate, taxes, small business, transportation, right? You have to learn these things. And with schools, it's very important to go and see and learn and listen to the students and listen to the teachers and hear the parents. And I think we find it's one of the reasons that we advocate at Commonwealth Foundation for the live tours is open the doors. Yes, there's importance to do facts and figures. How many students and how many graduate and what are test scores. All of that's very relevant. But as you mentioned earlier, the soft skills, seeing the students, listening to the students. Why are you here? What are you learning? Letting the students explain. And particularly for schools that may not be a neighborhood public school, that is a school that a parent chose, whereas in Pennsylvania, most folks have to pick their neighborhood school. So when you hear that, so it's wonderful to hear you say that because we have had so much experience at Commonwealth having those success stories. So it's great that you've had the same. When you joined us last year, to promote School Choice Week in 2024, you talked about what 2024, your hopes and dreams, or what you expected. And words you used last year, you said that 2024 would be a year where trends would include inspiration, innovation, and navigation. So the first question is, look back. Were those goals and expectations met? And perhaps you might share an example.
Yeah, so I'll say candidly, when I looked forward to 2024 in 2023, I thought that most of the legislative progress had already taken place. I was surprised to see states this year expanding and even building upon the successes in 2023, 2022, 2021, et cetera. Usually in an election year, especially a presidential election year, you do not see that much legislation passed. And we did see states take a lot of action in 2024. So what I got wrong was I undercounted the legislative enthusiasm for education freedom and school choice. I think I was right in the navigation thing. And one of the biggest challenges we saw over the last year was the implementation of some new ESA, Education Savings Account, which is a hybrid type of private school choice program. I know you know what it is, but for everybody else out there, program. I think that there were some serious implementation challenges in states, and that became a narrative that got picked up in the press and also is something that our movement is grappling with now. In terms of inspiration, the growth in micro schooling and the growth in non-traditional options, I think that was a pretty good prediction. Not sure what the third one I said was, but I'd say I got
navigation
60% right on
that's
the prediction.
Well, it's good, particularly if you underestimate how much school choice is going to take place. It's always right. You always want to do it.
Yeah.
So a few final thoughts. So one is you've been doing this a long time. And as you get ready to continue your leadership in National School Choice Week, and you look out at the nation in 2025 compared to 2012, how has the movement changed?
Well, the movement has changed significantly from the time I got involved in it, and also from the time it first started many, many years ago. The biggest change has been there is now practice and not just policy and proposals. And we see it working, and we see it in all different shapes and forms, in all different iterations. And the fact that it's been state-led has allowed states to learn from each other and improve and build upon programs and see successes and setbacks. And I think that has been the biggest change. I think recently, the biggest change has been that there is now a realization that it is not just a talking point, that this issue of opportunity in education cross-cuts all political parties. It cross-cuts racial demographics. It cross-cuts income. And COVID helped accelerate that, but it was going in that direction anyway. When you have 70-80% of people wanting more options for their kids, that's a higher percentage of people than say they like pizza or coffee or pasta. And you have to recognize that it is something that people are going to keep demanding. So I think there's a growing realization of that. And it's going to take some time for the politics to catch up, but it's getting there.
Well, as a fellow Italian, I have to appreciate your reference to pasta, pizza, and coffee. So thank you.
I don't know how pasta is not over 70%, but what do I know? I just know that school choice is more popular, and I'm happy with that.
And that's good, right? If school choice is more popular, that's really good.
They're not getting their pasta in the right place. They're not from Philadelphia.
They're not from. So. Exactly. So, two final questions. One is, there's a lot of talk about what's going on in Washington and how the Department of Education might change. You know, if as what is now supposed to be the new Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, comes in, you know, if you had her ear for 5 minutes, what would you tell her based upon, you know, what would you ask for? What would you tell her based of all the years and all your experiences in the school choice movement?
I mean, honestly, I think that the federal Department of Education is got a lot of employees for a relatively narrow mission, which is supposed to be to make sure that federal funds are appropriately allocated to states. And also they have some civil rights and student loan, departments that are pretty important.
Responsibilities.
I would say that the most that you can do to reduce the strings that are attached to funds to states, the better, because every time you attach a different string, education costs more and states essentially end up getting less. And so if you give somebody $1 and they have to spend 25 cents trying to make sure that they're spending that dollar wisely, you only give them 75 cents, really. And you're creating more and more of a bureaucracy at the local level, not just at the federal level. So I guess my point would be cut as many strings as possible so we can maximize the dollars we have without just automatically layering more on top. The second thing I would say is that the federal role in education should be and is constitutionally supposed to be limited. And we want education to be localized at the parent level, the community level, then at the state level. And so I really don't see a huge federal role in education or in school choice. I see that really as being something that should be driven in each community. So that's really the advice I would give, that it's a tough department to manage with so many people and really a very narrow focus.
Okay. So you were pretty good at predicting 2024. So we're on the edge of, we just had our legislative elections here in Pennsylvania. The new legislature will come into office. We have a new president coming in to the White House and a new Congress. So as you look out at Pennsylvania, as you look across the nation for 2025, I mean, what are the trends when, hopefully you'll come back, but if you'll come back sooner, but if not, if it's a year from now and we're getting ready for School Choice Week 2026, what will be the trends that we saw in 2025?
So the first thing I think we're going to see relatively soon is a push for some federal school choice tax credit program. And I think that the only way that actually gets passed is through a larger tax bill. And I think that, it's really the only, way through reconciliation that they'll get something done there. Not advocating for or against it, obviously need to see how it's implemented, because I really am a fan of local and state level programs. So I guess a federal effort and the biggest push we've ever seen to get that done would be the first thing. The second thing, I think we are going to continue to see legislative successes this year in states. The third thing that I think is going to be even more of a focus on effective program implementation, making sure that these new programs really are family friendly, and that when states hire administrators for programs, that they're remembering that the state isn't the customer, the parents are the customer. And I think sometimes there's a mismatch.
Okay. Before we go, do you have a final message for those folks that follow our podcast and those that will receive it because friends and family will share it with them? You have a final message for us on the school choice movement looking ahead?
I would just say that the school choice movement is best when we are optimistic, when we are tenacious and forward looking, and we put kids first with positive messaging. And so I know the Commonwealth Foundation is great at that. We at the National School Choice Awareness Foundation do our best to portray an optimistic message. Remember, this is about kids and their futures, and that's something to be excited and happy about.
Andrew, thank you again. We have so delighted this time of the year as we get ready for National School Choice Week to have had Andrew Campanella as our guest. Andrew's the president of National School Choice Week, a leading spokesman in the movement, and the chairman and CEO of the National School Choice Awareness Foundation. Andrew, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Guy. I appreciate it.